In today's video, we're going to walk you through the exact campaign settings we'd recommend selecting when making a brand new Google Ads campaign. And this video is part of our free Google Ads course, where so far we've covered all the aspects that goes into creating a campaign up as far as this point. And we've also made separate videos on how we choose each of these individual aspects as well. So this video isn't going to go into too much detail on why you choose each of these individual aspects, but simply which to choose, just as a checklist you have in place as to which campaign settings to choose when making any brand new Google Ads campaign. And so, starting with the networks, first of all, we recommended it starting out with the search network only, so not having the search partners network or the display network selected. And as we mentioned in that video as well, we would never recommend having the display network turned on under any circumstances for a new search campaign. And the search partners network, then, on the other hand, is only something we'd recommend turning on at some point down the line if you're really struggling for search volume, but isn't the way I typically recommend going about, getting more impressions if that's what you're struggling with inside Google Ads. So I'd recommend starting off with both of these networks turned off. The next part then is obviously the locations that you're targeting, and the main things we mentioned to touch on is that you obviously want to enter another location because you don't want to have the whole world or the whole country selected by default. And under location options, then as well, you just want to remember to make sure to select presence here and not presence or interest, so you only have your ads shown to people that are actually in that location. And we also walked through as well how to actually choose an entire location, like an entire town or city or county, and also do a radius around that area as well. So if you're based in a specific town and you know that you're happy to cover a 20-mile radius around that, for example, then you can target by mile radius or by place name. We also covered as well that you can show all areas and then you can start selecting specific areas within those areas as well. So you can get a lot more granular with this as well when you go to show all areas. The next aspect then is languages, and I'd always recommend running any individual campaign in one language only. And if you are living in a country where there's multiple languages being spoken and you want to run campaigns for both of those languages, then I'd recommend making a separate campaign for that language, as it is a lot more awkward to set up campaigns in multiple languages, so that's not something I'd recommend doing. Under audience segments, then, we mentioned that you can have as many different audience segments here selected as you like, but the main thing you want to do is just make sure that you have it selected to observation mode and not targeting. But as long as it is selected to observation mode, you can have as many of these selected here as you like. The next thing to look at then is ad rotation, and this is something that I wouldn't say there's any right or wrong way of doing, where optimize means that if you have two or three ads in each ad group, that if Google notices that one ad is performing better than the other, then straight away it'll start giving more traffic to that ad. Whereas in a lot of campaigns, we prefer to use do not optimize at the very beginning only, when we have multiple ads in each ad group and we want each one to get an equal amount of traffic early on to actually, give enough data to see which ad is going to perform best. And then we prefer to switch to optimize once there's actually been significant data gathered. But it is completely optional whether you go with optimize or do not optimize here, depending on how much time you're planning on spending inside the campaign once it's launched. If you are keeping a close eye on the ads and know that you will be pausing certain ads and optimizing around the best ones yourself once you actually have data, then you can go with do not optimize. But if you do think that you mightn't be seeing the ads that often inside the campaign, then maybe going with optimize might be the best option. The next one then is ad schedule, which we went through in the last video. And as I mentioned, by default, it's set to 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And in a lot of cases, I recommend going with that method, as we found it to be a great way of just getting consistent leads overall. Because sometimes if the ads are paused for the weekends, it might be a bit slower for the ads to adjust again at the beginning of the week. But mention that especially in industries where leads need to be responded to as soon as possible, whether that be by answering a phone call or responding to a lead form, and also if you're limited by budget especially, that it makes most sense to run your ads during business hours, that the leads are most likely actually looking to get the job done. So if you're running ads, for example, Monday to Friday, then you can run the ads 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. each day, for example. And apart from that, under more settings, then we didn't need to touch anything else here. So the start and end dates can stay the same unless you want to set an end date, but in most cases you won't want to do that. Under campaign URL options, you don't need to have anything set, and same with page feeds. So those can be left as is. So those are all the aspects of campaign settings that needed to be covered before moving on to the next step of setting our daily budget and actually getting the campaign initially published. So I hope this video helped and gave you some clarity on how to go about setting your campaign settings for setting up any brand new Google Ads campaign. Now, if you do have any questions about anything we mentioned inside this video or anything else related to Google Ads as a whole, feel free to leave a comment down below. And if you do like this Google Ads related content as well, feel free to have a look at the previous videos inside this playlist that went through all the steps leading up to this point of how to make a new Google Ads campaign. And stay tuned as well to the videos that we'll be posting daily on all of the steps that go into making a Google Ads campaign from here and how to actually manage the campaign as well once it goes live. So hopefully you enjoyed the video and we'll see you inside the next one.